Before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. But what if heaven knew? And hell did too. This is not a story. This is a spiritual case file. And it begins with a betrayal so deep, it carved your destiny into fire. You were still a child, maybe even sitting at a school desk, when the first blow came. Not physical, but spiritual. A mocking voice, a silent exclusion, a wound that no one else could see, and the enemy smirked. Not because he won, but because he recognized you before you recognized yourself. You were targeted early because you carried something eternal, and hell does not attack the ordinary. Type, "I've felt this," if your childhood pain now makes sense. Some betrayals are not accidents. They are assassinations in disguise. A word spoken to you by a teacher, a parent, a friend, meant to kill confidence, to confuse calling. It was surgical, demonic, precise, because they saw your light, even when you didn't. That day you were laughed at. That week you were left out. That moment you cried alone in your room with no one to hear you but God. Heaven was recording it all. The courtroom of heaven has not lost your file. The scroll of your suffering is still open. And what you thought was forgotten is still being weighed on the scales of divine justice. If you've ever been attacked for just being yourself, drop A in the comments. You were not abandoned. You were marked. You were not weak. You were watched. And when the devil whispered, "See? You're alone. You're different. You don't belong," he was telling a half-truth, the most dangerous kind. Because yes, you were different. You were never meant to belong to them. You were always meant to be set apart for him. And that moment that broke you was the very moment God began building you. Divine interruption. This is not a video. This is your visitation. God is calling the courtroom into session because a verdict is coming and your suffering has not been in vain. Stay here. Don't look away. The next 9 parts will explain why you were always the one the enemy feared most. Comment, "Heaven kept the record," if this first fire already hit your spirit. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah 1:5. You were chosen before you were visible. You were set apart before your mother knew your name. You were appointed while you were still in the invisible mind of God. Not as an accident, not as a placeholder, but as a weapon formed for a divine mission. Do you know what that means? It means the battles you faced didn't come after your calling. They came because of it. The moment heaven whispered your name into the fabric of time, hell picked up the sound, and the hunt began. Like Joseph, they mocked your dreams. Like David, they left you with sheep while others were anointed. Like Esther, you were hidden until your voice would become a weapon. You are not random. You are strategic, and every pain has been preparation. If you feel like you were never meant to be normal, type "set apart" in the comments. As a child, you didn't fit in, not because you were broken, but because your spirit was too awake to settle in shallow places. While others were building reputations, you were building discernment. While others laughed at jokes that felt empty to you, you were weeping at things heaven was trying to show you in silence. This is the pattern of the chosen. It's the unseen hand of God that pulls you away from the crowd, not to punish you, but to preserve you. Prophetic parallel. Like Moses, your identity was shaped in hiding, drawn out of water, raised in the palace of a people that weren't your own. But the fire in your bones wouldn't let you stay comfortable. You always knew. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to lead out. And every scar, every strange silence, every moment of deep inner knowing that you couldn't explain to anyone, that was God engraving purpose into your bones. If you know you've been called since childhood, comment "marked by God" right now. The enemy tried to convince you that something was wrong with you. But let me say this as clearly as thunder. You are not defective. You are designed. You are not broken. You are branded by the Spirit. And the weight you felt your whole life, that ache you could never shake, was not depression. It was the weight of your assignment pressing against your ribs, trying to break out. Many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew 22-14. But those who are chosen feel it in their bones, in their childhood memories, in the way they walk into rooms and feel tension they didn't cause, in the way their silence makes others uncomfortable, in the way their presence shifts atmospheres. You were known in eternity, and earth was just the place you were sent to walk it out. If this word is unraveling everything you thought you understood about your childhood, stay with me. The council of darkness knew who you were long before you did. You thought it was just bad luck. You thought it was just people being people, but it wasn't. What you didn't see was the spiritual intelligence meeting in the shadows, the invisible war room, the council of darkness, demons, principalities, territorial spirits, holding meetings about you. You didn't even know your name meant something in the realm of the spirit, but hell did. They studied your bloodline. They examined your dreams. They forecasted your destiny and launched an assignment to silence you early. If you felt spiritually targeted your whole life, type, "They knew who I was." Let me speak this prophetically. You were not attacked because of your weakness. You were hunted because of your potential. The moment your spirit entered this realm, alarms went off in hell. You were not born into neutrality. You were born into a battlefield, and Satan doesn't waste warfare on those without threat level anointing. Like Pharaoh ordering the killing of Hebrew boys because one deliverer was coming. Like Herod murdering children because one king had been born. There was something inside you that caused darkness to panic. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. This was never about them, not your classmate, not your teacher, not your cousin. They were puppets in a deeper plot. This was about your calling. The enemy used people as camouflage, but the war was always spiritual. The espionage was real. They planted voices around you to sabotage your self-worth. They assigned relationships to drain you, distract you, delay you. They even tried to put you in systems that would sedate your spirit. And yet, you still didn't fold. You still didn't conform. You still felt that ache, that call, that whisper. There's more. Type, "The war was real," if you've been in a battle others never saw. The devil tried to hijack your identity. He couldn't steal your assignment. It was sealed by God. So instead, he tried to confuse your reflection. If he could distort how you saw yourself, he could delay how you stepped into your authority. This is why they said, "You're too much. You're too emotional. You're too intense. You ask too many questions. You need to just fit in." It wasn't correction, it was assassination, masked as advice. But what hell didn't expect was that your spirit would outgrow the lies. The plot failed, the chains cracked, the false identity didn't stick. And now, the one they tried to bury is rising. Because when you're truly chosen, no attack can cancel your assignment. It might delay it, it might detour it, but it cannot destroy it. If hell's plot failed on your life, declare, "Still standing, still chosen." And now, the council is in chaos because you've started to remember who you are. But before your comeback, there's one more place we need to go. You prayed and nothing happened. You cried out and heaven stayed quiet. No answer, no confirmation, no dream, just silence. The kind of silence that shakes your faith to its core. This was not ordinary silence. This was surgical, strategic, holy. It wasn't rejection, it was refinement. Psalm 22, verse 2. My God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I have no rest. You know the scripture, not because you read it, because you lived it. You sat in that room with the lights off, wondering, did I imagine it all? Did I make up the calling? Was I ever really chosen? But what you didn't know was that the silence was louder than words. If you've wrestled with silence from heaven, type, I remember the quiet. Let me tell you the truth. God is never not speaking, but sometimes he speaks in absence. Sometimes the silence is the syllabus, because when God goes quiet, it's not to abandon you, it's to transform you. Like Job in the ashes, like David in the cave, like Elijah under the broom tree, like Jesus in the tomb. The silence wasn't death, it was activation. Prophetic word. The season where heaven was silent was the season hell assumed you'd give up. But instead of folding, you found a deeper fire. Instead of cursing God, you cried out louder. And though you didn't feel him, you were still seen. You were still protected. You were still being carved for glory. If you didn't give up in the silence, drop A in the comments. Psalm 13, 1-2. How long, O Lord? Will you forget me forever? This was the question in your spirit, but heaven wasn't ignoring you. Heaven was watching you mature. God hides not to punish, but to prepare. Because the chosen cannot walk by confirmation. They must walk by conviction. The silence taught you discernment. The silence killed the idol of applause. The silence taught you that when people walk away, you still have a rock beneath your feet. You learned how to keep walking when the heavens are quiet. And that, my friend, is spiritual warfare training. If you've ever grown stronger in the dark, comment, my roots grew in silence. Now listen, the silence is ending. The next phase has already begun, because every tear cried in that quiet place has been collected. Every unanswered cry has been documented. Every night of doubt is now a legal receipt in the courtroom of heaven. And now, heaven moves. It begins now. The shift, the reversal, the roar of heaven. This is the moment the spiritual gavel falls. You thought God forgot? You thought your tears dried into nothing? You thought those who mocked you got away with it? Number. The law of return was not delayed. It was loading. Every word spoken against you. Every door slammed shut in your face. Every betrayal scripted behind your back. Heaven wrote it down. Every single one. And now the reaping begins. If you know seeds were planted in pain, type, the harvest is here. They laughed, but God listened. They slandered, but God recorded. They sabotaged, but God permitted, only to position you higher. And now, every arrow is returning to sender. The curses spoken over your identity, returning. The manipulation, the gossip, the injustice, returning. Not because you're vengeful, but because God is just. Isaiah 61:7. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. Prophetic announcement. Your enemies were not your enemies. They were the fertilizer for your elevation. And when the law of return activates, it doesn't just punish, it repositions. You're stepping into the harvest of every hidden seed. Seeds of obedience, seeds of isolation, seeds of self-control when you wanted to fight back. Your integrity has become a legal weapon in the spirit. If you've sown in silence and pain, comment, harvest by fire. Let's be clear, this is not karma. This is not energy. This is justice. The judge of heaven has risen from his seat. The angels are shifting assignments. The accuser is being silenced, and heaven has declared, case file, your name, righteous, restored, ready. Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This was your heritage. This was your promise. And now, it's your reality. You won't have to fight this next battle. You'll watch it fall. You won't have to prove yourself. God will vindicate you in public. And so begins the unfolding of heaven's judgment. Not for your destruction, but for your deliverance. Stay alert, stay humble, because the courtroom is about to open wide. Now we step into the throne room, not a church, not a sanctuary, but the supreme court of the Spirit, where angels don't sing, they stand in silence, where every scroll is sealed with fire, where every witness is divine, and where the judge is not moved by emotion, but by covenant. You've cried, you've waited, and now you are about to witness justice. This is the courtroom Daniel saw. This is the throne Isaiah trembled before. This is the place where Satan accused Job and lost. Daniel 7:10. The court was seated and the books were opened. And in those books, your name is written, your pain is printed, your prayers are preserved. If you believe God has seen your case, type, "My scroll is open." The gavel has dropped. You were judged, but not as guilty, as righteous, because every charge against you has been answered by blood. Every lie told about you has met its end at the altar. Romans 8:33. Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It is God who justifies. You were not clear because you were perfect. You were clear because you were covered. And now, the judge speaks. Heaven's verdict over you. Not forsaken, not forgotten, not faking, forged, favored, freed. Let every demon who tried to destroy you hear the thunder. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. And let every lie be burned in the holy fire that surrounds his throne. If you receive this verdict, comment, "I stand vindicated." Listen closely. Can you hear the chains falling? Can you feel the false verdicts dissolving in the spirit? That weight that crushed your chest for years, it's lifting, because the courtroom of heaven is not just about justice, it's about restoration. God is not just silencing your accusers, he's about to honor you in front of them. Psalm 23 verse 5, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." The verdict has not just cleared you, it has elevated you. You were once the whispered about one. Now you are the witness of glory. Heaven has ruled in your favor. Now it's time for the recompense. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Psalm 23:5. This is not just recovery. This is not just healing in private. This is divine spectacle. Restoration in full view of those who once mocked, doubted, and abandoned you. Because when God restores a chosen one, he doesn't do it in secret. He sets the table where the pain happened. This is the moment where heaven reverses the shame. If you've been humiliated publicly, type, "God setting my table." Prophetic scene, the same hallway where you were ignored, will echo with your honor. The same people who dismissed your name will have to watch God promote it. The same voice that tried to label you a failure will go silent when heaven announces your restoration. Isaiah 61:7. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. This is divine payback, not rooted in revenge, but rooted in righteous recompense. Let's get this clear. God doesn't restore to the level of your pain. He restores to the level of your purpose. And that's why this next move will be public. You will walk back into the very rooms where you once hid your worth, but this time, you'll walk in crowned. God's not just giving you a seat, He's giving you the head seat. If you believe honor is returning to your name, comment, crowned in front of critics, what public honor looks like. People who used to look past you now ask for your wisdom. Places that once closed their doors now beg for your presence. Conversations that once excluded you now can't continue without you, because heaven has lifted the curtain, and what was hidden has now been revealed in glory. 1 Peter 5:10. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. You've suffered. Now comes the establishing. You've waited. Now comes the recognition. You've wept. Now comes the overflow. If you've waited in silence long enough to declare, it's my establishing season, the table is set, the oil is flowing, the cup is overflowing. But this isn't the end. It's the turning point. Because once you are honored, you see why you were broken. You understand that it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Now the revelation hits. Everything you endured, every betrayal, every rejection, every dark night was never just about you. Your pain was prophetic. Your silence was strategic. Your scars were signatures, signed by God himself. They were not proof of your defeat. They were receipts of your preparation. If you know your scars carry power, type, my pain has a mission. The truth is simple and holy. You were wounded to heal others. You were isolated to learn how to hear God in the dark. You were rejected so you would never build your identity on man's approval. You were broken so you could carry empathy with fire. And now, God is flipping the page. Your story is no longer just a testimony, it's a blueprint for others walking through the same fire. Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done. Like Joseph, your pit became a platform. Like Esther, your silence became your strength. Like Paul, your past became a pulpit. God didn't just bring you through. He brought you through with keys to unlock prisons, keys to break cycles, keys to speak life into those who feel like you once did. If your journey now makes sense, comment, I carry the keys. Now hear this. The enemy wanted you to bury your testimony in shame. God says, it's time to broadcast it in power. What used to make you cry is about to make demons tremble. What used to make you feel small is about to become the fire in your voice. You didn't just survive. You've been commissioned. You are the voice someone else is praying to hear. The greater mission is this. You were sent not just to escape darkness, but to walk others out of it. You were set apart not just to live differently, but to break the mold for a generation. Your name will be whispered in places you've never stepped into, because your scars now speak louder than sermons. You didn't lose time, you gained power. Declare this in faith. My wounds are now weapons, and now your spirit begins to rise, because you finally see it. You weren't just called to be healed. You were called to be a healer. You weren't just marked to survive. You were marked to ignite movement. And that mission begins the moment you stop hiding your fire. Let me speak directly to your spirit now. Yes, you, the one reading this with tears swelling behind your eyes.